after this past divisional round weekend, Ricardo, I'm going to have a hard time betting against Joe Chill and the Cincinnati Bengals. I really am. I thought the score was going to be much closer. You thought the score was going to be much closer, but you had Cincinnati from the beginning. But What happened? What happened? I stuck to my pick from the very beginning of the season, which was the Buffalo Bills. I felt the need to stick to that. However, the Cincinnati Bengals, my goodness, I mean, they were just, I don't want to spoil too much before getting into the actual episode.
A lot happened, and we'll get into detail with that. But I think we should let everybody know that we're back, and it's championship weekend, baby.
Yes, it is. It is championship weekend. But before we get into our predictions for these championship games, let us talk about what has already happened. These divisional games that were absolutely sensational. Sensational to watch. So with that, I am Jose.
And I'm Ricardo.
Welcome back to RJ Talks. Like we were saying in the intro, Ricardo, from the very beginning, I had the Buffalo Bills. I thought that they were going to do what they continue to do this past regular season. However, with the Cincinnati Bengals and the way that they started, it seems to me that, especially with this past month and a half, they have just been playing dominant football from the very beginning. These guys were not messing around. As soon as they got the ball, Joe Burrow passed it down 5 for 5, and with a touchdown pass to none other than Jamar Chase. All right, Jamar Chase being the offensive rookie of the year last year. All right, going into this season and playing absolutely sensational football with his former college teammate back in LSU, who also won the national championship the year before Joe Burrow was picked up in the draft that year. What was so amazing to me, Ricardo, was the score. The score ended up being much further in difference than we had originally anticipated. It wasn't until the Cincinnati Bengals drove it down the field for not one, but 2 touchdown drives to set their tone up for success. And the Buffalo Bills, on the other hand, offensively speaking, Josh Allen was doing what Josh Allen has been doing for this entire past regular season, as well as the Buffalo Bills. So this is a testament to the Buffalo Bills mantra. Josh Allen's the man. Give it to Josh Allen. So for Josh Allen, he can only do so much. But they rushed the ball, from what I remember, 15 times, and 8 of those rushes were Josh Allen's. You can't do that. You can't rely on the heroics of a man that is 6'8", 200 plus pounds.
Jose, when the season first started, when Buffalo dominated LA, what was the one weakness that we said was going to be their detriment? What was the one thing we were worried about, like, be their downfall? What was it?
It was Josh Allen and their reliance on Josh Allen, as well as the lack of run game. Lack of the run game, exactly.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep, it came back to bite them in the butt, specifically offensively. When you're as predictable with not providing a running game to help out your star quarterback, it's easy to key in on his tendency and what they like to do, passing the ball down the field. Jose, as far as for the Cincinnati side on the as far as how the game went down, it was an absolute beatdown on both sides of the line of scrimmage. It was one of the most incredible things I've ever seen, Jose. It was not in question. They were just bullying the Bills on defense and on offense. Now, on defense, granted, they only sacked him one time, but they were pressuring Josh Allen all over the place. And they were doing it by other ways, whether it was by Sam Hubbard and Hendrickson going up into his face on the both sides, or whether it was the Mike Hilton blitzing scheme done by the defensive coordinator from Cincinnati. We saw a lot of key blitzes on the edge of the line of scrimmage and being able to pass by those offensive tackles and get in Josh Allen's face, which I still say, Jose, that hit by Mike Hilton, man was 185 pounds, looked like he was 300 pounds when he hit Josh Allen when he was trying to throw that ball downfield and looked like a fumble, man. It was ridiculous to watch. And Jose, people have to realize they had 3 backups, the Cincinnati Bengals, on the offensive side of the football, start on the offensive line. it sure didn't look like that to me.
That's exactly.
They were bullying them. Yeah, it was ridiculous, man. They were setting their tone. They were leaning on them. It was like a heavyweight fight, Jose, when the bigger, tougher guy and taller guy just kept leaning on the smaller guy, and it wasn't even it was a mismatch. It was just a bulldozing train coming at them full speed. Now, it was a lot of, at the beginning, Josh, here's the reason why they were so unstoppable in the first two drives, Jose, because of the run game. Because they were able to get that run game, and then Buffalo Bills were caught off balance. And then I love that the second touchdown, Jose, was my man, the guy I knew was going to be his key safety blanket to help him out. Hayden Hurst had a great game for Cincinnati, and that touchdown pass that he caught, because they did the fake Jamar pump screen on the right-hand side, I was like, oh, they're ready to play here. They're coming to play. Now, the whole time, Jose, I was waiting for Buffalo to respond with the same kind of offensive firepower. I did not expect Cincy's defense to dominate like that. It was one of the best things I've seen.
For sure, and it was a flash of what we saw in last year's Super Bowl with Cincinnati's defense against that elite LA Rams offense that was last year's. What was insane too, Ricardo, was that offensive line, of course, was 3 of their starters were missing. Right? This is somewhat of a makeshift offensive line that the Cincinnati Bengals are running. But like you said, it didn't look like that to me. It didn't look like that to you. It didn't look like that to me either. And the fact that the Buffalo Bills were missing Von Miller, unfortunately, the guy that they dropped so much money on this past offseason, man, I mean, it's like they lost their entire linebacker core. What happened? So, and I concur with Shannon Sharp, because he was talking about this on Undisputed, where you just need that one guy. No matter how built that defense is, you need that one guy that's going to be breaking that line and looking at that quarterback and having him in his sights, because you have to get to him, right? Especially with a team that is historic. That when I say historically, I mean the past 2 seasons, who have historically been ineffective at protecting Joe Burrow. So the current Buffalo Bills defensive line wasn't even able to break that, right? Either that or the Cincinnati offensive line just came and they weren't even messing around, right? It was a mix of the two. It just seemed like the Buffalo Bills altogether, defensively as well, were just not working out. We're just not working out at all.
Jose, I gotta, we like to give credit out to players who deserve it when we see a big game and we recognize they make key plays. Now, I'm not saying just because of the one interception that happened towards the end of the game, because it was pretty much garbage time by the time Josh Allen threw that late interception. But Jose, Cam Taylor-Britt for the Cincinnati Bengals, a rookie, has played outstanding this postseason. Outstanding. I see him up against top receivers, and every time there's a play being made his way, he always prevents the big play from happening. One key play, Jose, it was a 3rd and 5, and Josh Allen tosses the ball left side deep to Gabe Davis. We know big play Gabe. He likes to play good in the playoffs.
Yeah.
And Cam Taylor-Britt was able to knock the ball loose. Granted, Gabe Davis didn't have secured it, but he would still have a chance to try to regain the ball. But Cam Taylor-Britt swiped it right out of his hands. That guy had a great game. Unbelievable game. And him and Mike Hilton, I think, were the players of the game for the Cincinnati defense. They just played outstanding coverage-wise and secondary-wise. And it's gonna be good to see if they're able to keep that pressure up, because Jose, I don't know if this is a detriment to Josh Allen or if it's a great moment for Cincinnati's defensive coordinator blitz calling. But Josh Allen wasn't able to pick up any of those blitzes or make him burn for any of those blitzes.
He wasn't.
I don't know if you saw anything different, but usually when there's a blitz, there's a weakness that comes with it. And Josh Allen wasn't able to exploit it. Granted, he didn't get sacked, but he wasn't able to make big plays out of it.
He was not, and it was unfortunate to see one of the top receivers pretty much the Buffalo Bills' top receiver, Stephon Diggs. It was unfortunate to see him only receive the ball 4 times, get 35 yards altogether. Cincinnati's defensive strategy was to block Stephon Diggs at all costs, it seems like, right? And they did a phenomenal job at that. And Josh Allen, as well as the offensive play calling, just for whatever reason, could not adjust to that. All right, on the opposite. And this is another thing that I really wanted to mention too, was the fact that Cincinnati has the most pressured quarterback in the NFL right now, right? And if not right now, then last year, right? So Joe Burrow at this point is How many times was he pressured this past game, Ricardo?
I couldn't tell you if I couldn't tell you if he had a gun to my head. It didn't seem like that many. That one sack, it was just scrambling.
That's exactly it. That one sack, and how many yards did he lose? 2 change. That's chump change. So it was incredible. It was incredible to see the Cincinnati Bengals really step up in this game, and the Buffalo Bills were just stunned by how real these guys were on the opposite end of the ball. Man, I mean, Cincinnati is really looking like the favorite here, the favorite to go to the Super Bowl. But we're going to start talking about Patrick Mahomes going into the next few segments. But right now, Cincinnati is looking. Oh my gosh! I mean, I can't even say. It's incredible. It really is, because it is not very often that you see somebody like Joe Burrow, who is coming in out of his second year in the postseason and now is breaking franchise records, right?
Yeah.
Including quarterbacks that took them to the Super Bowl, he's breaking their records already.
That's right. Including the record that was set back in the 80s with I can't remember the quarterback at this moment in time, but the Cincinnati Bengals were going up against the San Francisco 49ers, the dynasty San Francisco 49ers. So at that point in time, and Joe Burrow is now just shattering those records. Granted, it's a passing league now, but what he is doing right now is unlike anything that we have seen in Cincinnati Bengals history.
Jose, what I love about this run compared to last year's, because last year's it was kind of a little big play done by Jamar and Joe Burrow on the defense having some constructive play. Jose, you definitely see a difference offensively in the play calling.
Yeah.
It's not just Jamar or bust anymore. It's run it with Mixon here, a short pass over there to Boyd. Trent Irwin, the little wide receiver, number 16, gets a pass here. Hayden Hurst, safety blanket, get a first down here. Go over the middle, go intermediate. This is why I love about not big play teams, or this is rare that it happens so quickly, Jose, that teams realize this, but it's okay not to get the big play. It's okay to get 7 yards here, 5 yards here, 10 yards here, intermediate, 15 yards here. You're not going to get a 40-yard touchdown pass every time. It's just not going to happen. And the reason why I think they're the favorite, Jose, is because what we talk about on this podcast every single episode is balance. And the Cincinnati Bengals have that balance offensively when they came to running the football into the mouth of the opposition. They got the early lead, but they kept that lead because they took their time and they ran the ball down the throats until Buffalo could stop it, and they did it. They got 172 yards against Buffalo, 5 yards each carry. I wouldn't stop running it either. I thought for a second they were going to go away from it, but they didn't. Why would you?
Right. It was. I'm at a loss for words now, man. I mean, I'm truly at a loss for words. The Cincinnati Bengals are looking like a dominant AFC force, and I cannot wait to see how they're going to match up against the Kansas City Chiefs going into this next week. We will, right? I'm not going to be getting into it just now, but the fact it's going to be insane, and it's going to be fantastic to watch. I'm just very, very, very excited to see how Joe Burrow does up against Patrick Mahomes once again.
And Jose, you're talking about pressures, right? So really quickly to bring up before we wrap up here, Josh Allen was only sacked one time, but he was pressured a lot, and he was hit a lot.
Oh yeah,
he was hit hard. That made the difference of the game, is that they kept hitting him, and that cold snow and the hard football weather out there in northern New York in the very cold in January, that adds up. And Josh Allen's about the biggest quarterback in the league, Jose. I can't think of another quarterback who's taller and bigger and stronger than him. So my key, I'm not going to go into that, but my point is that Cincinnati's defense kept hitting him, and Buffalo didn't punch back. It's like a boxer's game. They got punched in the mouth and they didn't respond.
They did not.
It was sad to see them go out. It was surprising to see them go out this way. We were expecting something more classic. You and I both thought.
For sure. We were expecting more of a shootout and more of just may the best man win kind of game, but unfortunately that's not what we got. Buffalo Bills going into next year, I'm hoping that this loss does not affect them because I still do love watching this team. It's week in and week out. I was very thrilled to be talking about them on a regular basis, especially just game after game. They were just so consistent. Unfortunately, they could not fix their mistakes as effectively as the Cincinnati Bengals have since week 1 and week 2 of the regular season. So with that, I think this is a good time to segue into another familiar story with the San Francisco 49ers and the Dallas Cowboys. So everybody, do not go away for that.
Yeah.
Coming back to affect current games, this is what happens. The San Francisco 49ers overtake the Dallas Cowboys in the divisional round, and they move on to the NFC Championship to face the Philadelphia Eagles. Ricardo, it's another year. It's another year, especially it's another year for the Dallas Cowboys, right? And this is the story, this is the cycle of the Cowboys franchise for the past, they haven't made it to an NFC championship in almost 30 years. Is it not 28 this year?
Yeah, it is 28.
Yeah.
Older than the two of us.
Yeah, older than the two of us. So 28 years. The Dallas Cowboys have not seen an NFC championship matchup, let alone a win, right? So at this point, Dak Prescott has one good game, but the best game of his career, as we were starting to get on last week, right? The guy was phenomenal. The guy was phenomenal. And we gave him credit where the credit was due. This is something that we always want to do on this podcast, is give credit where credit is due. Dak Prescott had a phenomenal game. We'll give him that. Most definitely. Who had a good game this week? The defense. The defense had a solid game. We won't...
Outstanding.
Yes.
I will give them credit. They had an outstanding game.
Yes, they most definitely did. They were able to hold the Niners to a certain degree, right? But defense, and this is something that I heard from Shannon Sharp, defense does not outshine bad quarterback play.
Yep.
And exactly. Bad quarterback play is what this is. Jerry Jones got on the radio, right? Got onto a podcast, mind you. He got onto a podcast after last week's game and started saying, hey, turnovers are not in Dak Prescott's DNA. Turnovers are not in Dak Prescott's DNA. I'm sorry, is he watching the same games as we are?
We can't tell.
We can't tell. We can't tell. Those are embedded deeply into his DNA, I would say.
Jose, the worst part about this is that this is why Dak Prescott wasn't a clear-cut answer at the beginning of the year. When we talked in the summer, Jose, I believe we had talked about him. Either it was June or July, one of those summer months.
Right.
We talked about Dak Prescott's career. And it's like, why isn't he as good as he can be, or why is he such a polar topic? Polar opposite topic for people. You either love him or you hate him. It's not in between. You don't think he's good. We both thought he's okay. He's okay. He can make some moments here and there. But Jose, this might have solidified his moment with the Dallas franchise, because the fact that, and people have said this all the time, but we have to bring it up, Jose. We have to mention it. A 7th round rookie quarterback in his 10th start outplays you in a playoff game, and you're in your 7th year. You should be, if not in your prime, at the beginning of your prime, and that's the performance you give. And the worst part about it, Jose, is that those interceptions were not excusable by any measure. The first one to Jimmy Ward that led to the Niners field goal, held to a field goal, which was fantastic by the Cowboys defense, mind you. It was the latest throw I would ever see. Jose, you could have sworn he was playing man. He was like, screw it, let me just try the curl route there. You know it's a timing route, Jose. Yeah, to the people who don't know, a curl route, when it's 10 yards out, you throw it when the guy's back is still facing towards you. So the fact that when it's in midair, he turns around and he catches it perfectly. So there's no chance of an interception happening.
Correct.
No chance.
Yes.
Yeah. But not with Dak Prescott. I mean, Jose, you could have, if you just ran me like the stats and like what a quarterback did in each play, you would have thought that Dak was the rookie in this game. It was unbelievable. Like it was bad decision after decision after decision. And what did we talk about? Zeke Elliott with Jose, when Tony Pollard got knocked out of the game of injury, their one driving force, and it was just Zeke or bust. Where was he? I mean, where was he? Where was some semblance of a running game? It was just horrible play offensively. Horrible.
And that's everything.
Horrible. And
sorry. Go ahead.
No, you go. You're good, man.
And that's Ezekiel Elliott. He was the driving force going into this postseason. This is what everybody was hyping up too, was the fact that Zeke is back, right? Zeke and Saquon, they're back, right? Ezekiel Elliott had no real value in this game. They didn't utilize him at all. And who had a good game on the offensive side of the ball? CD. CD had a decent game. But CD Lamb is already a pretty solid receiver for Dallas. We know this. You know what else we know? How inconsistent Dak Prescott is. Right? He has a phenomenal game one week, and then the next week, all of a sudden, he just blows up. You don't have those same kinds of doubts with Joe Burrow. Kansas City doesn't have those doubts with Patrick Mahomes. So I can only imagine how the Dallas Cowboys feel when they're going into a game and they say, okay, he had a solid game last week, but I guess we'll see about this week. You know, they're pulling their collars and sweating a little bit. Why is that? Yep. Why do the Dallas Cowboys have to deal with this kind of quarterback play?
Jose, it just comes down to who can play and who can't when those bright lights are upon them. We didn't know a single thing about Brock Purdy. We didn't know anything about him. We didn't know about like what he could do, like his prospect and whatnot. Dude can play.
And now he's 7-0. He's 7-0.
Yeah. Dude, Jose, we were talking about Brock Purdy as this was his first official test against the top 5 defense in the NFL. And he stayed calm.
He did.
Did he have a perfect game? No, he did not. But you know what else he didn't do? He didn't turn the ball over. And he made key play after key play. Jose, that patience that he had when he kept rolling and looking, and then George Kittle gets the stumbling catch, that's a play that a veteran makes, not a rookie. A rookie was like, okay, I got time, and then not tries to force something. No, he knew it was either Kittle or it was the ground. It wasn't either one of them. Kittle's going to catch that ball or it's going to be an incomplete pass. And dude can play. I'm impressed by that game. When it's tight, when it wasn't easy, Jose. When Christian McCaffrey wasn't running wide open down the field. When Deebo Samuel wasn't wide open on in cuts. When he had to zip the ball in there. Who had the most impressive game for the Niners? George Kittle.
Yeah.
Went back to the security blanket and didn't force anything downfield. Went to George Kittle and that pass, it wasn't the end of the game by any means. Like, they didn't score off of that. I know McCaffrey scored, but to me that was a huge step in the progression of Brock Purdy. And I'll say this: let's say the Niners don't win the Super Bowl, but let's say they lose next game, for instance. Let's say they lose a close one to Philly. They got a real controversy on their hand.
They do.
Because we just saw this kid play in a tough playoff game. We haven't seen Trey Lance do that in a regular season game. Once he was the official starter. So that'll be interesting to watch.
And it's going to be an even bigger, as you were saying, it's going to be an even bigger controversy if they do go on to the Super Bowl and they win it. Even if they just go to the Super Bowl. Even if they just get there with Brock Purdy, it's going to be like Nick Foles back during the Philadelphia Eagles reign. Yeah, it's going to be like Nick Foles going on to beat the New England Patriots. A Tom Brady-led New England Patriots who just the previous year had the greatest comeback of all time in Super Bowl history. So, as far as Brock Purdy's future goes, the kid's looking great. solid. I remember after his first game, you and I were talking and saying, you know what, let's give it some time. Let's see. You know, and I had my doubts from the very beginning, but as far as just rookie plays go, I'm always skeptical about it. Because I'm always kind of nitpicking, because at the end of the day, it's a bottom line business. That's what the NFL is, right? So you have so for Brock Purdy, he's already proven his worth. He has passed the test. All right? He did not turn the ball over like the supposed veteran receiver that was on the opposite side of the ball. Or excuse me, the quarterback. Excuse me, the opposite quarterback on the other side of the ball. So as far as Brock Purdy's future goes, it's going to be very questionable. Even if they, like you said, even if they do lose this next game, we're going to see what happens between him and Trey Lance. Because oh boy, Trey Lance is looking good, but Brock Purdy right now, he's in the limelight. Trey Lance is very close with every solid game that Brock Purdy has been played. Unfortunately, Trey Lance has been slowly being pushed out.
And I'll say this, Jose, just to put some perspective into this, so we don't get too ahead of ourselves. A game manager doesn't win a game like that. A game manager quarterback does not win a game like that. The Niners won because of Brock Purdy. And it was key in his play. He didn't have the best stats, but it was a tough, nitty-gritty game, and and you needed someone to weather the storm. Exactly what it was weather the storm, not force anything. The one mistake that I'll say he made that game, I was watching this game, Jose, so I was watching it when they would get the ball at the end of the half, when they had 6 seconds left, and Shanahan decides to run an extra play to try to get in field goal range. And he's holding on to the ball. I'm like, you got to throw it. You got to get rid of it. You want a chance to kick the field goal. And he, at the last second, he throws it, but he throws it across the field, not just into the dirt where a receiver's nearby. He throws it across the out-of-bounds field to the point where they barely had a second left. But I'll give the kid credit. He recognized in the last second, I gotta get rid of this. We have a chance to get some points here. And it ended up being important in the game because the game was tied 9-9 going into the fourth quarter. It was tough game. But credit to the Dallas side, Jose, which we got to do. I mean, what more can we say about this front seven from Dallas? They were able to shut down this Niners run game in ways that we didn't think they were going to be able to do. We thought they were going to get routed. I thought they were going to get routed like this too. I think the Niners were going to establish the dominance, but Jose, the Eagles and Giants game, we thought it was going to be a version of this game. Tough defensive play and running the ball and back and forth like that between the rivals.
Oh yeah.
That's what this game ended up being. It was a tough back and forth, and give credit to Dallas's defense, specifically DeMarcus Lawrence for sacking Brock Purdy to prevent them from scoring a touchdown after Dak Prescott threw that interception. That was an important tone setter. And give credit to Dallas's defense. Like I said from the beginning, it was an outstanding game from them. Only wish they had a quarterback to help them over the hump. Sorry.
Man, it's very disappointing because it seems like the pieces are slowly starting to be put together for Dallas. And this is a story that we have seen throughout this season, on a regular basis. Oh, this team is good, but they're just missing a quarterback. The Vikings, all right? With the exception of the defense, we'll push that aside for just a second. That offense, for example, right? You have a phenomenal duo in Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen, but they don't have a quarterback, all right? They can get open, and he can make those wide open passes because they have those elite receivers, all right? It's disappointing, really, and I cannot stress this enough. The Dallas Cowboys need to reconsider their quarterback position, most definitely, especially since, like you said, Ricardo, Cooper Rush has had better games than he has. I'm not going to say, okay, but I'm not going to sit here and say, and this is something that Skip Bayless had said, had Cooper Rush been put into this game, he would have won it for him. But at the same time, he was saying that he's not better than Dak Prescott. But either way, yeah.
I think the point he's trying to make here is that a guy who's supposedly the guy, and in his prime, 7 years in, there's no maturing at this point. You are who you are.
That's true.
You might get a little bit better, but those are the Hall of Famers that add up to another level. But in 7 years in, The worst part about this, Jose, this was a winnable game. They could have won this game. Like, that's what hurts most for Dallas fans, is that the defense did its job to the T. They made San Francisco score less points than last year, Jose. San Francisco scored 23 points last year. They scored 19 in this game. It was and people get when people say they were allowed a last second touchdown. They were tired. They were on the field all day. They were tired, and their quarterback was giving them nothing to work with. And it's rough, Jose. And I agree with you. They got to look for a new quarterback moving forward. I'm not saying go with a veteran that to build a bridge.
No.
But they got to know they have to trade to get some pieces to get the quarterback for the future, because your franchise quarterback wins games like this.
Well, we'll see what they do in the offseason, going into this season, going into post-Super Bowl, because last season, what did they do? They really did anything. We were hearing trade this, trade that from every other team but them. They didn't make a whole lot of adjustments. So hopefully going into this next offseason, it's going to be different for the Dallas Cowboys, because, oh my goodness, they need it. My goodness, they need it. I'm not saying that they're an awful team. They are not an awful team by any means. You don't get a winning record like that by being a god-awful team, right? I want to set the record straight here. That's not what I'm saying, because the defense is very much in sync. They're fantastic, right? And even that offensive line is still somewhat of a semblance of what they used to be, right? But CeeDee Lamb is a solid option as well, right? But it's those few little pieces that they really need to start reconsidering, okay? But as far as the Dallas Cowboys goes, they have to do that. They have to do that. Those are their pieces. Those are their pieces that they need to fill in, that they need to get rid of, and then they need to fill in with better ones, right? Now, moving on, we're going to be talking about another game, all right? And at this point in time, the Dallas Cowboys the Niners and the Philadelphia Eagles, we're going to be talking more about our predictions later on in this episode. But those two, that's going to be a solid game. And I'm so excited to see how Brock Purdy does up against that consistently elite Philadelphia Eagles defense. So, But before we get to that, we need to talk about a couple more games, so do not go away for that. As we've continued to say, Ricardo, this is something that we had mentioned a couple of weeks ago, if not just last week. There's not a whole lot of room for adjusting going into the postseason. All right, that's what the preseason and the regular season is for. Right. So going into the postseason, you are who you are as a team. Good or just slightly above mediocre, great, elite, whatever adjective you want to use. All right. The Jaguars, unfortunately, are the team that they were going into this game. All right. That's not to say that they didn't put up a fight. 27-20, that's not nothing. All right. But because they scored in every quarter of this game, and the Kansas City Chiefs defense has continued on the way that it has continued on this past season. Just been slightly inconsistent. All right. The Jacksonville Jaguars were able to score 20 points on them, but what got them is the clock, as well as turnovers. All right? Mm-hmm. They lost both of those, and because of that, the whole point of the entire idea of playing against the Kansas City Chiefs is so that Patrick Mahomes does not get that football. Gets that football for the least amount of time possible. That is the idea here, and that is the reason why the Jacksonville Jaguars lost. They very well could have won it with a score that close, but it came down to those two things: turnovers and the clock. They couldn't beat that. All right, and they gave it up to Kansas City too much. They gave them too much time to do anything.
Yep, and Jose, one key that we thought was going to happen for this game, for Jacksonville to have a chance in this game, any semblance of a chance, was running the ball with Travis Etienne.
Yeah.
And Travis Etienne had a decent game running the ball, 10 carries, 62 yards.
Yeah.
You got to keep giving him the rock. Give him the rock until they stop him. Like you can't let I know Trevor Lawrence isn't a rookie, but he's still young, you know. People forget that, like, just because you make that boost that you're not prone to mistakes. Make it as easy as possible for Trevor Lawrence. Run that football down their throat until they can stop you and do some play action on them. I mean, I'm looking at some stats here. They got 144 rushing yards off of 19 carries. 19. Like, you have to adjust to be able to win at all costs. Oh, not adjust, but understand that some games are going to be different than others, and that's going to help your quarterback. I'm just saying, Jose, with 7.6 yards per carry running the football, Trevor Lawrence should not have to throw this ball 39 times. He should not have had to throw that ball that amount of times, and it made it harder for them to go on there. But this goes back to your point about how to beat the Chiefs. Possession football.
Yep.
Running the clock. Mm-hmm. Scoring when necessary. Limiting the amount of times they can stop him on defense. Now, granted, Jacksonville was able to stop him a couple times here and there, but here's the disappointment, Jose. When you have a backup quarterback come in, you need to be ecstatic as a defense. You can't let him go to Travis Kelce. You have to be like, okay, you're going to beat us any other way but stop Bo with Travis Kelce. Travis Kelce had a great game, 14 catches, 98 yards, 2 touchdowns. But you can't it's one thing if Mahomes gets him the football, you can't let Chad Henne beat you like that. And that one touchdown that he got to Travis Kelce before the half ended, that ended up sealing the game. They lost by 7 points.
Yeah.
They lost by 7 points, and it was clear that Patrick Mahomes was not the same guy after that injury. And we'll talk about that injury and how it might affect in this next game in the AFC Championship. But the pulling on the wrap on this game is that it's right. Jacksonville was who they was. They put up as big of a fight as they can, but a more disciplined, like, not more disciplined because they play okay, but a more experienced defense knows when there's blood in the water and knows, like, okay, we cannot let the offense score like this on us. We have to play disciplined football.
Yep.
And how many times will say, am I going to see a defense not double team or triple team Travis Kelce and force him to go elsewhere with the ball, like, especially with the backup quarterback in. So
you may not have to say that next week.
It was closer than we thought it was going to be, but it's frustrating because that's the thing with young teams. I'll say is that they're close, but they need that experience to get better. And this will be definitely a good experience for Jacksonville, and they're solidifying themselves as the favorite to win the AFC South next year.
They most definitely are. The Jacksonville Jaguars are looking fantastic. As far as Trevor Lawrence's game goes, he's got to cut down on those interceptions, man. Oh my goodness, it's not good. It is not good. That's going to kill you as a quarterback, especially a rookie quarterback. So with the Jacksonville Jaguars going into this next season, that's really going to be their biggest hurdle. That and also just running the ball, though, just the offensive play calling as a whole. That's definitely going to have to be that. Of course, the play of the game, Patrick Mahomes throwing the game-winning touchdown off of his good foot, right? And that pretty much sealed it. Had Jacksonville, because like you said, Ricardo, Jacksonville had a solid stop, right? They forced a 3 and out with just over 4 minutes left in the game, right? And as soon as they got that, and then Trevor Lawrence was put back onto the other side of the ball, throws a pick to Jalen Watson. So it's rough, man. It's rough. Trevor Lawrence cannot be cracking under that kind of pressure, especially since he is now hailed to be the guy for the Jacksonville Jaguars, right? Not saying he's bad, all right? Not saying he's bad, but there's most definitely a whole lot to be desired as far as his field reading goes, all right? On the other side of it, Kansas City, right? Kansas City is going to be playing the Cincinnati Bengals next week, right? And that is going to be the game to watch. For sure.
Oh, yeah.
Both championship games, definitely, but there's going to be a lot more riding on that Kansas City Chiefs game because the stakes are high for both teams. All right? Kansas City last year was beaten out by Cincinnati, and throughout this past couple of years, especially this past regular season, the Bengals have had their number. So they have not beaten the Bengals. They have not beaten the Bengals yet this season. So it's going to be very interesting to see how they do going into this next week. As far as Patrick Mahomes' injury goes, I know you had a little bit more to say about that, Ricardo.
Yeah, so with the high ankle sprain, Jose, is that it's tough. It's tough. Like the ankle's going to be numbed up, and it's definitely going to play a key factor into the part as far as Cincinnati going against Mahomes, and it's going to affect his play style a bit because we all know who Mahomes is. He's Superman. He can do it all. He can run to his right and throw the football across his body perfectly to his left. He can run out of the pocket and chuck it while he's on the run, and he can also run the ball, and he can also pass it in the pocket, avoid pressure and all that. But Jose, all that movement comes from beneath with his feet, and attached to his feet is one of his feet is that hurt ankle. Now, I'll give credit to the NFL. They're going to do well, not the NFL in general. I'm saying like teams,
sure,
not the league itself, but the teams. They're going to numb up that ankle and wrap it up tight and good for when that game starts.
Oh yeah.
We'll see what happens when those hits start flying, and let's say when he has to push pressure off of that foot, or when a guy, and you know this happens when people know an injury is there, they're just going to be drawn to it. When the first guy falls down on that leg, or like when he first gets knocked down and someone's on his ankle, we'll see how he reacts. Now, he's a tough man. He'll do whatever it takes to win.
For sure.
There's only so much a man can do if something's hurt badly. Now, we just got news, Jose, when he went off to the press conference, is that he walked into the press session and he walked off without a boot or anything. And he went through the walkthrough, Andy Reid said, and he went to practice that night. It's just going to come down to game time. Let's see who he is. So we'll see how much an effect it has on that game. But we'll go into the AFC Championship here a little bit later. But as far as for the Chiefs look good, stellar, and what's scary about them is that they can run the football as well. And they're very much into possession football, and they understand this season that they don't need the big chunks to still score lots of points on you. And very excited to talk about next week, but before we do that, let's talk about the last game of this weekend.
Most definitely. Do not go away. To end this segment off of the divisional round, we're talking about the one and only blowout of this past weekend, and that was the Philadelphia Eagles and the New York Giants. Ricardo, it's the Philadelphia Eagles that we have been watching all season. Let's be real about that. Okay? The Philadelphia Eagles that we have been watching. Jalen Hurts was back in MVP. Back in MVP form. All right? He was phenomenal. They're nothing short of phenomenal. I mean, the guys just continue to show us, even in postseason, that he does not crack under that kind of pressure. Right? He has been consistent all year, and we have seen it throughout this game. Miles Sanders was fantastic throughout this game. Jonathan Gannon's defense was, from the very beginning, had Daniel Jones's number.
Mm-hmm.
Right, so we have continued to see that throughout the entirety of this game, and it was great to see Jalen Hurts back and fully recovered as himself, right, and ready to take on this divisional rival in this very crucial game that we had to see, right, because the New York Giants had a stellar game going into this, right, they did, and the Philadelphia Eagles knew that, so they knew that they had to put on a show, and they did. And they did.
Jose, I was visiting my sister this weekend, helping her move a couple stuff into her new house. And at the end of the day, we went down and we went to a bar. We had dinner, and we're like, okay, let's see how this game starts. And I still have to make the drive back home, dude. And you know, driving back to Tucson at night, it takes a little bit of time. So I'm like, man, I hope I can like watch as much of this game as I can. And when I saw the game starting out, I was like, oh my goodness. I'm like, they're bullying them on the front. Let's see if the Giants defense responds. And when I was thinking that, it was the play, and I'm not kidding you, I was like, oh boy, Giants better respond or they're in trouble. It was the play where Jason Kelce, Travis Kelce's brother, Jason Kelce, Philadelphia All-Pro center, pancakes one of the Giants D linemen with one arm into the ground. And I'm just like, oh my god, oh no.
Oh no, this is over.
This is over, yeah. This is over. Like, if I'm Philly, I don't stop running the ball down their throat until I do it. Jalen Hurts' longest pass of the day, I think, was the very first pass of the day that he threw it at play action and he got Devontae Smith because he had no need to throw it. He had no need to throw it at all. It was a straight up beat down from start to finish. Jose, there were two. I texted you throughout the weekend. There were two games, and I'm like, another bullying by an offensive lineman. It was this game and the Cincinnati game when the offensive lineman just pounded the punt, beat them up. No other offensive line. Beat them up. If you're an offensive line, those are the games you dream of having, especially against your rival in the playoffs. Especially against your rival in the playoffs, you just beat them down from start to finish. Because I think the Eagles were getting tired of being disrespected, being like, yeah, we'll see if it's us, or we'll see how they are. The Giants really have a chance to upset in here. Daniel Jones is the guy for New York, and we were like, let's pump the brakes a bit. It's his best game. Let's see how he does this one. And the key to this game, Jose, for Jonathan Gannon's defensive coordinator, they had to spy every single play on Daniel Jones. I'm not kidding you. Every single play, there was one guy, whether it was C.J. Gardner-Johnson or one of their middle linebackers, always on Daniel Jones, no matter where he went, whether it was a passing or running game. And early on in this game, I was like, okay, let's see how the defense responds a bit. And it was a play, and it was a read option kind of play, and Daniel Jones kept it, and there were two guys immediately tackling him within 2 yards of the line of scrimmage. I'm like, oh, it's going to be one of those games defensively. Okay, let's see. And they got up 28-0 and did not look back. They gave away one touchdown to start off the first half, but after that, it was rock solid defense from start to finish. They forced him to pass the ball like, you're not going to run this. We're going to play tight man coverage. And Jose, it's very fitting that the former Giant, James Bradbury, is the one who gets the interception on Daniel Jones. Very fitting for him to get that as a little icing on the cake.
So with the Philadelphia Eagles defense in mind, we got to give some credit, Ricardo. We got to give one shout out to Hassan Reddick. Oh my goodness!
Absolutely.
Oh my
former
goodness.
Cardinal, baby.
Former Cardinal in the right flock, if you will. Yeah. So he's in the correct flock now, right? So with that being said, the Philadelphia Eagles played phenomenal, balanced football. All right, and that is like you said, Ricardo. That is exactly what we have been seeing, or what we have been talking about episode after episode here. 250 yards rushing they've had just this game. Oh my goodness! I mean, just absolutely phenomenal. I don't have the passing yard stats pulled up in front of me right now, but the fact of the matter is that this is who the Philadelphia Eagles have been throughout the entire regular season. They have been the most balanced offense I have seen throughout this entire regular season, and now going into this postseason, they're carrying that same mentality. All right, They are formidable. And they're going to, and I have a good feeling that they're going to prove that going into this next week too. Nothing's really going to change for them going into this next week playing against the San Francisco 49ers. But this is going to be their biggest challenge yet. All right, especially up against this rookie QB that is coming out and playing as solid as he can.
Absolutely. I mean, if you want, we can just get into it right now. I mean, go into the NFC Championship.
Absolutely. Before we get into that really quick, Ricardo, I did want to say one thing. This does not undercut anything that Brian Daboll has done throughout this past year.
Coach of the year, no question.
No doubt at all, right? So Brian Daboll had a pretty bad game going into this, right? But that does not mean that he has not been the one to rejuvenate Daniel Jones as a quarterback and as the leader of the New York Giants. All right, they have a winning record this season. That's something that we can say.
Yep. Absolutely, and give him a real quarterback, and let's see how much better he does in the postseason. The fact that he not necessarily made the playoffs today, but won his first playoff game in his first season as a head coach, that's outstanding, and it really shows how much the Bills are missing him, considering the fact that he was their former OC last year, and you see how much the Bills seem to be reeling now after he left. So. Great job by Brian Daboll, and we will say this: Saquon Barkley is definitely back, and we're excited to see what this new season comes up. And then let's see them get some wide receivers, man. Let's see them get some new weapons to help out that team, and it's going to be very exciting for them this offseason. I am personally jealous. They already have their head coach, but they just need a quarterback and some pieces to go around them. So we'll see. Definitely good job mentioning that, Jose. We got to give him credit for the outstanding season they've had.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Especially rejuvenating the New York Giants franchise. Ricardo, okay, I want to take literally like a minute to mention this too. The New England Patriots have hired Bill O'Brien to be their offensive coordinator. So, Bill O'Brien has been an offensive assistant for the New England Patriots. He has been a part of the Patriots organization before. So, of course, it doesn't surprise me that Bill Belichick is hiring on some old blood, right? So let's see how he does going into this next year. Okay, so I wanted to take about 30 seconds to mention that Bill O'Brien has now officially been hired on as the next New England Patriots offensive coordinator. Ricardo, what do you think?
Very important, Jose, because he was Mac Jones' OC.
That's right.
Back in Alabama. He was his OC. He knows what he does best, and he's seen them at his most successful. So I'm very happy that the Patriots finally listen. Mainly Bill Belichick. I know everybody else listens to us, but mainly Bill Belichick finally listened and hired an actual offensive coordinator. And let's see them get some weapons, and be excited. Happy for you, man. I knew you had to mention that at some point throughout the podcast.
I had to for sure, and literally a minute that we had to spend on that. So let's go ahead and move on. First off, the NFC Championship, Ricardo, the Philadelphia Eagles versus the San Francisco 49ers. For me, Ricardo, the San Francisco 49ers will be able to stop the run game for sure. All right, there is no run threat like Nick Bosa and the rest of that defensive core. All right, they're going to be able to stop that run for the Philadelphia Eagles, and they're going to force them to simply just passing. Right, that's all fine and good. However, what did we just get done talking about? How balanced the Philadelphia Eagles offense is. All right, and how formidable they are and how well they are to adjusting to the circumstances, right? They didn't get to a nearly undefeated streak by just luck, by just dumb luck, right? 14-3 speaks for itself, right? Especially with how elite the Philadelphia Eagles have been playing and how Jalen Hurts is now back and better, and it seemed like seemingly unaffected. So it's going to be
a key in the game. Everyone thought that he was going to be hurt. He seemed fine to me. He looks okay.
For sure.
Go, dude.
And Brock Purdy, right? He was tested up against that Dallas Cowboys defense. So that Dallas Cowboys defense is very good, right? Great even. But how is he going to do against the Philadelphia Eagles? That Philadelphia Eagles defense that has adjusted mid-season and it paid off for them. Right, So I do want to give Brock Purdy that kind of credit, though. He's able to handle the Dallas Cowboys defense as well as he did. I think he will still put up a fight up against this Philadelphia Eagles defense, especially with the likes of George Kittle and Christian McCaffrey in the backfield.
Yep.
So for me, Ricardo, and this is my prediction. This is what I'm going to put it down to. Right. I myself am going to put it down to 27-24. Eagles are going to the Super Bowl.
Great prediction. I definitely agree with that. I think it's going to be low scoring than that, Jose. I think these defenses are really going to force each team to make as little mistakes as possible. I think it's going to come down to 17-14 Philadelphia Eagles. But let me tell you why. they're gonna pretty much nullify each other. We both admit on the run game defensively on both sides.
Yes.
Because both teams are great at stopping the run. They just face teams that their main thing is running the football.
Mm-hmm.
The Giants and the Cowboys, their main things are running the football, and they are able to stop that. So they're going to nullify each other there. What it's going to come down to quarterback play against tough secondaries.
Yes.
With good receiver.
Mm-hmm.
And as much as Brock Purdy has played great, this game's going to be away. It's going to be in Philly. And it's going to be tough to get some rhythm. And he's going to have to get that loud fans in his... I think as great as he's been in his run, I think this run's going to come down to an end because I believe Jalen Hurts is the better of the two quarterbacks, and he's going to show it. And this is his time to show it, and his time to show himself as a top quarterback in the NFC conference. I think him with A.J. Brown and Dallas Goedert and Devontae Smith, they're going to do just enough to come out with the win and go to the Super Bowl as well. So to me, it comes down to quarterback play. Both defenses are great, but one quarterback's going to make a better play than the other, and that's how it's come down to. It's going to be a nail biter. It's going to be fun to watch, dude. This is the first year I can remember, Jose, with the AFC Championship where literally I feel like both games are going to be super close.
Oh, yeah.
Like, there's not one game where you're like, it's whatever. Like, I don't care about that. I'll watch the other, like, conference championship. No, both are going to be must-see. Like, I'm not going to leave the TV on Sunday. I promise you that.
I am not leaving this couch until both games have been had.
You better believe it. No question.
Oh my gosh, I almost wish I had Sunday off now. Damn. All right. And last but not least, of course, we have the Cincinnati Bengals and the Kansas City Chiefs, a rematch of the AFC Championship from last year, right? Yes. Ricardo, this is a tough one. Well, it's not a tough one. I do fully believe that the Cincinnati Bengals will take it, simply because they are just on both sides the better team, right? The problem with Kansas City, as elite as their offense has been and as elite as their team is now, their defense suffers. It's too inconsistent. And it's full of a bunch of young guys. On top of that, Not only are they inconsistent, but they're young. They're young, man. So it's going to be tough for them to stop the elite Cincinnati Bengals offense, and as balanced as they are, right? Because at this point in time, Joe Burrow passes it to the open guy, and that's what separates him from Josh Allen, right? Josh Allen was trying to search for Stephon Diggs throughout the entirety of the game and could barely get it into his hands, right? And if it wasn't him, then it was his feet to the ground, right? Running towards the first down. Patrick Mahomes is a big scrambler, right? But that doesn't mean that he's not able to throw those very clutch passes in those key moments, right? But what's going to happen when those guys inevitably double up on Travis Kelce? Because you know that's going to be their defensive strategy, and it has to be. If it's anything other than that, it's anybody's game at that point, is it not?
Yeah.
So at this point, Ricardo, because of that, because they're going to be taking away that deep threat, and also with the unfortunate circumstances regarding Patrick Mahomes' injury, I just hope he doesn't play it safe, right? But it's going to be difficult not to, right? But like you said, Ricardo, Patrick Mahomes is a tough guy, right? He'll be able to put his cleats to the ground, all right? But because of that, Ricardo, and with how elite the Cincinnati Bengals have been this past season, I'm going to say that by the end of it, it's going to come down to literally a touchdown. So my prediction for this is 21-14, Cincinnati.
Low scoring game.
Yes, low scoring game, but low scoring game. I think low scoring game. But as far as the Cincinnati Bengals go, because I'm not going to count out the Kansas City defense, they're definitely going to try their best, considering that yes, it is the AFC Championship, right? So that's the reason why I'm putting Cincinnati down at a lower score than I would expect them to. All right, but Patrick Mahomes is going to have a hard time, and I think that offense is not going to be as effective as they have been this past season.
Absolutely, and I agree with you as well. I think Cincinnati's gonna take it as well, but I'll get into my score here towards the end. Now, I got some key bit of information regarding injuries, but on Cincinnati's side, with the Cincinnati side, Jose, Alex Kappa and Jonah Williams, both questionable to return.
Yeah.
Very, very interesting if two starters come back just in time for the AFC Championship game to go up against that veteran front seven.
Yeah.
The secondary, I agree with you, is absolutely green. Like they're in rookie or first or second years. Like they're young. But that front seven, they're going to need all the help they can get. And if Alex Kappa and Jonah Williams comes out, I think they might win by a larger margin. But I think Cincinnati has enough to win the game. And here's why. I'll go first offensively. They just got to run the ball down Casey's throat. Run the ball enough to where you get those guys pressured and forcing them to go into one-on-one man coverage. Because one thing we know about Spagnuolo, Jose, when he plays defense, he loves man coverage. He loves playing man coverage. And if they're able to get a consistent run game going enough to try to bait them, it's gonna open not only Jamar, but it's gonna open T. Higgins and Hayden Hurst. And I believe Hayden Hurst over the middle is gonna be key in that game, as much as Travis Kelce will be a key for Kansas City's game. Now, that's gonna be it. It's gonna be them getting consistent chunks. I don't think Spagnuolo's gonna allow them to go deep on them, especially that route that Jamar Chase had the year before in the regular season, where it was just deep shot after deep shot after deep shot here. I think they're just going to get enough to where they get the secondary in man coverage situations where they get pattern timing routes, and they're going to be able to burn Kansas City that way. It's not going to be obvious, but it's going to be consistent chunks. And the fact that they were so disciplined last week against Buffalo in the snow, Jose, to take the little play after little play after little play, there's no doubt in my mind that they're not going to be afraid to do that with KC as well, offensively. I mean, I can talk about Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase all day, but I'm going into strategy here to try to so I'm not talking for the rest of the night here. Now, defensively, there's one team that's always figured out a way to pressure Mahomes without sacrificing coverage on the back end. That was the Tampa Bay Bucks in the Super Bowl when they were able to pressure him all day with 4 guys.
Oh, yeah.
And Cincinnati's game plan last year, with the Tyreek Hill, mind you, was contain consistent rush towards Mahomes and forming a pocket around him to the point where they kind of, like I said, they're kind of like snakes. They slither around to where they get key consistent pressures. I don't think they're going to be able to blitz him as much as they did Josh Allen last week, because Patrick Mahomes is too good of a quarterback to allow that to happen and not take advantage of that.
Yeah.
So what I think is going to be the key in the game is that, Jose, last game they played this year, Travis Kelce didn't have that good of a game. They knew that to stop Kansas City, they had to double or triple team Travis Kelce, and I think they're going to employ the exact same strategy they did that earlier in the regular season to force them to beat them somebody else. I'm not going to have Travis Kelce beat me. If you beat me with Juju Smith-Schuster and those other receivers and Pacheco running the ball, so be it. But it will not be Mahomes to Kelce. And that's how I believe they're going to play it. And they're going to play it tough. And I think they're going to go man coverage and try to force Mahomes to get rid of the ball quickly. But I can also play them zone coverage. Jose, there's one defense that they always play that I loved watching them run. It's with a 3-man pressure and a QB spy on Mahomes. So where they get the QB spy just enough space to decide whether or not he wants to go after Mahomes immediately or if he wants to just stay back in the coverage. The people at home who don't know what a QB spy means, it's in the name. It's pretty much a guy who follows the quarterback no matter what's happening, whether it's a run play, whether it's a passing play. You have one guy, it's like, your job is to go after that guy. So I think they're going to employ strategies of pressure and having that 3-man pressure rush with a QB spy. But what's going to be key in this game, Jose, is them stopping the run. If they can stop the run against Kansas City, it's going to force them to be one-dimensional. It's going to force Patrick Mahomes to play superhero football, which we know is going to be very tough. And if they're able to hit him with an injured ankle already, it's going to be a tough game. All this boiling down to, they're going to have to finish this out in what's it called?
In
regulation. If this game goes into overtime, it's going to be very, very tough to get momentum back in the Arrowhead. So I think game's going to come down. I say it's going to be close, but Cincinnati will pull away, whether by a touchdown or a couple of field goals. I think it's going to come down 27-21.
There you go. There you go. Fantastic. Yeah. Yeah. So we both agree that it's really going to come down to a touchdown. It's not going to be a field goal. It's not going to be that close, especially with the two leaders of those offenses. All right.
Two best quarterbacks in the NFL right now.
For sure.
In my opinion.
For sure. Bar none. Yeah. No, absolutely. Especially after last week's game, there's no doubt in my mind that Joe Burrow is literally a part of the top two. Top two, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
All right. But those are our predictions, everybody, going into this conference championship game. All right. It is exciting. Oh, my goodness. It is exciting. And I cannot wait to talk about the Super Bowl once it's over. All right. Because, Ricardo, this is when we started the podcast. This is the first episode.
Yeah.
This is the first episode of our podcast last year, was talking about the Super Bowl. And it wasn't until March that we started talking about it. First, in the beginning of March. So we're literally going to be talking about the Super Bowl days after. Days after. So it's very exciting.
I still remember, dude, when you first mentioned that we should try to have a podcast together. I'm like, that seems like an interesting idea, and it might be kind of fun. And I just can't believe that we're here, dude. We completed a full season of football, and after this weekend, it's going to be the Super Bowl, because forget the Pro Bowl. Nobody watches the Pro Bowl anymore. But we're going to be excited about talking the Super Bowl, and I'm going to love it. And,
yes.
and like I said before, you're not going to get me to leave that TV on Sunday. It just isn't going to happen. The only time I'm leaving is for bathroom breaks during commercials. And food and during halftime, that is it.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. I can't wait. I cannot wait. I cannot wait for this weekend. The conference championships are finally here, Ricardo. They're finally here.
Yes.
So, Cincinnati Bengals and the Philadelphia Eagles in the Super Bowl in Arizona. That is what we are hoping for. That is what our predictions are. If it changes, so be it. That is what football is all about. It's still the Super Bowl, and we are very excited to start talking about it. Now, with that being said, this is the end of this podcast episode talking about the divisional round of the playoffs 2023. Thank you guys so much for listening. If you like what you hear, go ahead and subscribe to the YouTube channel and follow our Instagram at rjtalks_11 for all of our new uploads going into these last couple of rounds of the postseason and the off season going into the 2023 season. Thank you guys so much, and have a good night. We'll see you next week.
Have a good one, guys.